Hey there, in this video we have the worst errors of all, the bugs, the things where the code runs, but it doesn't do what we want. Instead, it does what we told it to do. And if you have in your head that what you told it to do is the same thing as what you want, these can be extremely frustrating. You have to keep in mind the computer is not doing the wrong thing. It may be doing something surprising to you, but it is not doing the wrong thing. It is doing exactly what you told it. So we got to use all of our debugging tools here to try and zero in to figure out what is going on. What is the computer actually doing? And then how can I change that to be what I want it to do? Okay, so here's our first example. X equals 3. If x equals 1 or 2, print x is 1 or 2. Otherwise, print x is not 1 or 2. And even though x is 3, it just said right here x is 1 or 2. Okay, so what just happened here? Code like this is some of the most aggravating stuff you can run into. I mean, unless you already know the solution to this one, it looks like it's just doing the wrong thing. You know, the stupid computer is doing the wrong thing. It's completely broken. But, you know, the computer is doing just the right thing. The error, the root of the error here is misunderstanding how to write something in Python. So let's see if we can try and figure out what is going on. First thing I might want to do while debugging this is add some print statements. So let's just print x and see what x is. Sure enough, x is 3. Right? But so this part of the if statement is definitely being triggered, and x is 3. I might say, but was it 3 before I ran this statement? Okay, so put my print up there. Yeah, x is still 3. Let's print x equals 1 or 2. Equals 1 or 2. 2. Now, you should have been expecting true or false, but it said 2. What is going on there? So what's happening here is this is a case where things are so weird that we might even want to create a new cell just to play around with. Okay, so if I do x equals 1, that's false. And if I do x equals 2, that's false. Okay, and if I do x equals 2 equals 1 or x equals 2, I mean, that's false, right? But that's not what was written up here. What was written up here was x equals 1 or 2. X equals 1 or 2 is 2. So just to cut to the chase, what's going on here is OR statements in Python return whichever thing is true. They don't return true or false. They return whichever thing is true, if any of them are true. And if nothing is true, it'll return false. And so in Python, you have something called truthiness, where things like if statements and while loops, they don't actually have to have true and falses in them. They just need to have something that is truth-like. So if I do if true, print yes, then that of course is supposed to print yes, right? And if it's a false, print yes, it'll say no. What if I do if 2, print yes? Well, if I do if 2, print yes, it prints yes, because values are true. The only numerical value that isn't true is 0. If I try 0, it doesn't print yes. But any other number, like 1 or -1, these are all going to print yes. And so if I didn't know that, then this would be a surprise to me. And this would seem like it's broken code, but really it was just a misunderstanding of how to use OR. More importantly, though, is not this particular bug, but what we did to try and zero in on it. We tried to find for sure where is the program going wrong, and then we tried some experimentation to figure out what's happening. And even if my experimentation didn't bear fruit, if I have it down to a single line not behaving, that makes it much easier to get help, to maybe find an answer online or ask somebody about it. If you can show them very simple code that causes a crash, they may have the experience to say, oh, did you know that the OR statement acts that way? Okay, now let's look at this second example here. We've got some data. Looks like it's Jenny's phone number. For item and data, let's make a list, and if that element in the data is less than 5, I want to append it to the list and then print it. So this should just be all the numbers that are less than 5. So it should print 3 and 0. But what it actually prints, here I've got a name error, I've got an exception. So shame on me for writing double buggy code. I changed names here. I guess I want this to be element, because it's saying, oh, I don't know what that is because I never defined it. Okay. Nonetheless, this still does not work. It gives me an empty list, but clearly there are things that are less than 5. Okay, what's going on here? So here's a place where we could use print statements or assert statements. The main difference being the assert statement will stop the code if it ever gets triggered. The print statement will just keep going. Print's good if your code doesn't do too many loops. Like this one's only going to loop through 7 digits, but if we're going to loop through like 10,000 digits, you probably only want to see the first one. And that'd be a good place to use an assert because it'll stop the code. In any case, what I want to do here is see if there are any elements that are less than 5. Do I ever run this print statement at all? Because it sure seems like I don't. And yet when I run the code, it includes exactly the elements I'd expect. It includes 3 and it includes 0. Okay, so did something go wrong with append? That'd be the next thing for me to check. Like, what does low look like? So if I print low right after I've added something to it, well, that's interesting. I mean, the first thing it adds is going to be a 3, so this line looks good. But then on the next line, when it adds the 0, the 3's gone. And then by the end of all of this, there's nothing left in the list. So it's like the list is forgetting what we added to it. So why would the list forget what we added to it? Okay, well, let's back this print statement out a level. So let's print what low looks like right after running the if statement. All right, so it's empty, 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 empty. The first 4, they should be empty. And then it's the 3, and then the 3's gone. It's the 0, and it's the 9, and then this extra line here is the last print statement. So yeah, it's definitely forgetting. Why would it forget? Well, at this point, I think we've zeroed in on the issue. Let's step through mentally what's happening. For element and data, create or attach the name low to an empty list. And then if the element's less than 5, put it in the list. Now we go through again, throw away the old name, make a new one, and that's our problem. We're erasing the list as we go. We're recreating it. This is a matter of putting the code in the wrong place. So what we really would want to do to fix this is put low before the for loop. We don't want to recreate it every time in the loop. It's a common error. And now we get exactly what we had expected. It's just the 3 and the 0. So again, we did some detective work. We worked line by line. Maybe you spotted it before I got to in my sort of tortured detective work here. If so, great. Again, I'm not really worried about these specific bugs. These are just 2 out of the infinitely many different ways code can go wrong. The important thing here is, what is your technique for fixing it? And again, it's some detective work trying to figure out specifically where is the code going wrong. And then even if you don't know the immediate fix, you can now ask somebody for help without showing them a page of code, and they're going to look at it and say, I don't know, something's wrong with the code. Or, they'll say, like, it's the error message it printed. But here, when you can get it down to some minimal code, now you have something very concrete, much easier to load up into your head and think about, and much easier to get help with.